Visit Avery.com, Avary, for the most up-to-date news and information on Team Avery.
Avery, 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 Avery.
The Video Archives podcast with Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery is back for season 2. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to get ad-free exclusive content and bonus episodes. This is The Gala Show. I'm your reporter on the beat, Gala Avery. On this episode, you may know my guest as an actor in titles such as The Boy Next Door, Teen Wolf, and The Hunger Games, the host of the podcast What Is Your Meaning, or the CEO of Superion Edge. But here on The Gala Show, I know him as that dude who was supposed to play Connor in Unwind, Ian Nelson. Stay whole. Hey, Ian.
That was so many years ago.
And you know what's funny is I actually interviewed Percy.
Did you?
I did. I interviewed Percy recently. We talked about outsider artists. And for him, I was like, yeah, that's that dude that was supposed to be Lev in Unwind.
Gosh, Percy and I never met during
Really?
that process. We never met any of them because, like,
Oh, yeah, because I don't even know. I met Kiernan once.
yeah, I never met her, but she was supposed to be she's supposed to be
Risa? Is
yeah,
that her name? Yeah.
that
God,
was
this was so long ago.
That was one of the coolest experiences, and I don't know. Have you ever talked about this on the podcast?
I think with like Percy, I talked about it briefly because Percy and I we keep running into each other in Los Feliz, and I was like, is that Percy? And like I knew him when he was like 13.
Wow.
But no, like basically, just for those of you guys that don't know, my dad and I were tasked to adapt a young adult novel named Unwind, a New York Times best-selling young adult novel.
It's a great book.
Yeah, and Ian was to play the lead, and unfortunately, it never came together. But like as Percy said to me, I think even on the podcast, it's one of his favorite projects that he wishes he had done.
It's such an important story. I thought, like, and obviously, the cast was insane, and it's one of those things that people just don't really get about like the film industry, is how many projects don't get made for such an assortment of random reasons. And this particular project, there were some catastrophic reasons that it kind of fell through and it lost a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
We not that we need to get too into it, but Bill Paxton was supposed to play the
Admiral.
villain.
Yeah, he was supposed to play the Admiral, and his son James was supposed to play Roland.
That's right. And unfortunately Bill passed away, and and there were some other really weird things that just happened with the project and just kind of lost momentum.
Yeah, there was this whole thing with Constantine and like the changeover with the sports industry in Germany. It really messed us up, but
we got to meet. And that was years ago,
friends.
and we're still friends. And it's like I just you and your dad have always been so kind to me, and I stayed with you guys. Do you remember when I stayed with you in Paris?
Yeah, in Paris. You stayed with me in Paris, and then also like you and my brother were like really good friends too for a while.
We all hung out when he was at Oxy, right?
Yeah, you hung out at Oxy.
I came up and I visited you guys.
College,
and we got dinner together
at that Singaporean place.
Yes.
I think it's Singaporean Joy, or maybe it's Taiwanese. That place is, by the way, like one of the best places to eat in LA.
That was a great day.
And we also got pancakes once at like that little cafe over here in Larchmont.
But that was with your dad, though.
Was it with
years
my
ago.
dad?
That was with your dad years ago.
Yeah.
That was at the Bungalow. The Bungalow doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist anymore.
No, it's now a clothing store, which is so sad.
It was like the best pancakes ever.
That was my favorite place. I went there all the time, and I remember I did my college applications there, like because I was in town. I think I was filming The Boy Next Door, and my mom and I would go to the Bungalow and we would do work, and I was still in high school, obviously. So I was like, I think I was still in high school. And so I remember applying to like college, sitting there eating lunch, and it was an iconic place. But I remember the Paris thing I thought about the other day, because that was just so special. I got to go on set. Your dad was directing that really interesting French
Le Voix
film.
Humaine, yeah.
Right?
The Human Voice, yeah.
And it was like getting to be on set in like a French set was so different. Everyone was just hanging out.
Do you remember my memory? Like we went to a museum. I have all the pictures, I think, still from the museum that we went to.
We couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
We couldn't find it.
We like walked. We found a mall and was like, "This isn't." It was the Pompidou.
Yeah.
Remember, it was the Pompidou.
Yeah. But it's funny. So we went to that museum, and then I remember on like the subway ride that two girls recognized you.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this. Okay, so like two girls recognized you, and they were on their phones and they were looking up pictures of Teen Wolf and like looking like, is it is it him or not? And then we got off the subway and I looked back and I said, yeah, it is. I like gave him the nod and the thumbs up, and they ran out of the subway and they came and they met you. They actually got off at the wrong subway stop. Do you not remember that?
I don't remember this.
Well,
I vaguely remember you interacting with somebody else, but I don't remember. You know what's funny is like, I very rarely got recognized for anything I did, because I always had this weird thing where I always looked so different than I looked on screen. Like every project I did, I looked slightly different. I would like, even with Teen Wolf, like Teen Wolf was, I mean, they like tanned me up too.
they really did. They like shellacked it on.
They shellacked it on. They really made me feel super self-conscious, because I was like, I guess I'm pale.
That's okay. We can be pale. Pale solidarity.
Pale's good. I mean, but like, I mean, I always look so different. And like when I did, I think of other projects like Boy Next Door. I lost a lot of weight for the Boy Next Door. I didn't look so healthy when I was on screen for that on purpose. So I didn't really look like myself. And then like other movies I did, like a movie called Freak Show, I'd gained a lot of muscle, and I like had my hair in this really weird way. So I don't feel like I never got recognized a lot. And when
Except
I did,
for
it
that
was
Paris subway.
the Paris thing. It's like, it's interesting, and at the same time, I think it was like, I never had to become too self-aware of my. I think it's a really interesting dynamic. It's like when you're out in the world and you see somebody you recognize from a project, and you can kind of like tell that they know people are aware of them as something more than just
themselves,
a common human interacting in the world. And it's really, when you separate yourself from that, and you don't have to experience it on a daily basis. And a lot of my friends and like, you know, people I've encountered in the past that's a part of the reality. But I think it's such a weird thing. It's like, it's such an odd thing where you have a heightened sense of awareness of your own self in space, where it's almost like there's this burden on your shoulders all the time that you can't just go anywhere. I never really had to experience that, which, you know, I don't know, maybe in the future something will happen, but I think it's also like an interesting
it's nice to be able to be creative and anonymous.
Yeah,
at least I think so.
I was always in really interesting projects, and like I was never in something that was so iconic that it like followed me around forever.
Yeah, like a ghost hanging on you.
Yeah, I was always able to do kind of whatever projects I wanted to do, you know, which is always a blessing.
Before we bring up the topic for today, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So obviously Ian and I have known each other for, God, is it like almost 10 years now? No.
It must
7?
be like, yeah, I think it was like
7.
2016 we met.
Yeah, so we've known each other for a long time, and a lot has happened in Los Angeles and the world between then and now.
Oh my God.
And when we were kind of chatting before the show, we kind of talked about how the pandemic really changed things for the both of us. That's what got me into podcasting from writing scripts, and that's what kind of has led Ian on this beautiful journey that I get to witness through Instagram. But I wanted to ask you, what did the pandemic change for you? And I hate usually talking about the pandemic, but I think this is an important thing for you and I to talk about.
We're going to talk about it in a way that's not going to bring people back to a time that was really upsetting. I think for me, it was a time of isolation. I was here in this apartment by myself for a significant amount of time, alone for weeks sometimes without seeing another person. If you look behind you, actually, it's really interesting. Those are all panels that I made every single day during the pandemic, because I was alone by myself a lot. I would write down a lesson that I learned that day. And it would be a quote. It would be something a friend told me on the phone. It would be something I read. It would just be a revelation I had. So the pandemic for me was interesting. So right before it happened, I had, through a very odd path, it was weird. I've been taking voice lessons since I was a kid, because my first professional job was actually in opera. I was a boy soprano when I was a kid. Yeah.
Really? Okay.
That was like
I'm learning all sorts of new things today.
Yeah, this is one of the more random facts. So it was like, I was a boy soprano in this opera. And so I've been taking voice lessons since I was a little kid, like probably 12. And then I had a voice teacher who was like, why don't you write your own songs? And so just as an experiment, I just wrote a few songs while I was on set for this movie called Paper Spiders, which is a really beautiful movie. I got to film it in Syracuse, and I just had a guitar with me, and I was just playing music, and I wrote a song, came back to LA, recorded it, and my voice teacher was like, this is really good. You should do another one and get it like professionally done. So I had one song finished, and then the pandemic hit. And I was like, well, it's funny. It's a little funny, actually. Everyone was like, oh, it'll be over soon. It'll be over soon. But coming from the film world, things always take much longer than people expect them to.
I think people see also with the strike right now, it's a trickle down. it takes forever.
Takes
It's like
forever.
even when the strike's over, it's like everything, the wheels have to start churning again. It's a machine, and it's like once it's it's a train. Once
Yeah.
it's going, it's going. But
The
once
mom-
it's stopped, it's like the momentum.
It's hard to pick that back up. And so I was like, well, okay, if I'm being a little pessimistic, I think it's going to be probably 2 years before I get to be back on set. And so I was like,
It's probably realistic, not even pessimistic.
that was realistic. Everyone was like, I think people were saying like Easter, I think was the thing. And I was just like, I don't think so. I was like, I think it's going to be longer. So I was like, what can I do? And I was like, well, I just did this song and I can play the guitar. I can practice the guitar all day with no one's permission. I can write songs. I can do all these things. And so I was like, I'm just going to go hard in the music direction because that was the only thing that I could do creatively. And so during that year, I wrote 50 or 60 songs.
Oh my
I was practicing the guitar 4 or 6 hours a day over the 2 years really of when the pandemic was kind of in the most intense part. We had filmed, I think, 3 music videos. I started like an artist partnership with Gibson during that time. And I ended up like the pinnacle of my music was really getting to record a single over at Sunset Sound, which was this really interesting opportunity that presented itself. And the song has a feature from this incredible guitarist named Orianthi. And Orianthi's like, was Michael Jackson's guitarist in the This Is It documentary. And like, I knew her through the Gibson connection, and she actually knew the executive producer of the single. So we got her to come in and just do a solo. And so like, with the interesting thing, so that was what the pandemic did. It almost allowed me to have this entirely new skill set. I had the blessing of time to develop a new skill set. And then during that time, because I was producing a lot of music videos for myself, I actually was editing all of them too. Because I like that stuff. I didn't know I liked that though before the pandemic. I didn't know how much I liked a comprehensive approach to entertainment. And so I was editing, I was directing, I was producing, and I started producing a bunch of content for like luxury brands at the time too. So I was running this production company. And, you know, that was what the music gave me, is it gave me this, it gave me like this portal into learning so much more about myself, which was like the biggest blessing. And that's what I look back at. And I remember having this thought when LA shut down. I was like, some people are going to be better off after this, and some people are going to be worse off after this. And I'm going to be a person who's better off after this.
Wow. That's really, and you made that decision.
I made that
decision.
decision.
You succeeded. I think you succeeded.
Thank you. I mean, you know what's interesting is like, part of me misses the simplicity of only seeing myself as an actor. Part of me misses how simple that was in my head, that I know what I do. I know what makes me feel quote unquote successful. Mm-hmm. Like I know what a win looks like. I'm familiar with the ups and the downs, but then today my life is so much fuller, and I still have my passion for acting and writing and directing and producing, but I'm also doing all these other entrepreneurial endeavors. Like, you know, I own a marketing firm. I'm the CEO of a tech startup, and, you know, amongst other things. And like, you know, it's every single day is so new, and I get to experience like all the different aspects of my passions, and I get to honor like the different parts. I get to honor the creative part of myself. I get to honor the business side of myself that, you know, loves sales and loves negotiations and loves just like meeting new people every single day. And I think that I'm probably a much more honest version of myself now than I was like 2.5, 3 years ago.
Now, as always, my guest gets to bring their topic to the mic. Hey, Ian, what are we going to be talking about today?
I don't know.
I knew that already.
I don't know. I think it's like I had some ideas, but then I was like, I don't know. Where
would you like to start?
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe we'll just start in North Carolina. Let's just
Then
go back to it.
Let's do that.
But first, time for a commercial break.
Back by popular demand, the Video Archives merch store is up and running. Get your favorite t-shirts, hats, notebooks, stickers, and more at videoarchivesmerch.com. You know me. I write all my notes in the Notes on Cinema notebook, the Gala edition, of course. Check out videoarchivesmerch.com to get yours today. Hey, thanks so much for being a loyal listener. If you want to keep up with me off mic, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Gala Avery.
back.
You heard it here. We're going to be starting in North Carolina.
I'm starting in North Carolina.
30 minutes on the clock, and our time starts now.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, what's up with North Carolina? North Carolina.
That's where I'm from.
I know that, but
That's where I'm from.
You know, it's funny though. I always like imagine you as from New York. I don't know why.
I love that.
I don't know why.
Good.
Like, do you ever go to New York?
I spent a ton of time in New York
That's
as a
probably
kid.
why.
Yeah. It's interesting. So my dad's from New Jersey. He's from Union. So he was like.
So you got a Jersey dad.
We got a Jersey dad. He grew up going to the city like every weekend with his friends. My mom's from Philly. So like we're really Southern transplants.
Are you born North Carolina?
Born in North Carolina.
So you're Southern.
I'm Southern.
Technically, Northern Carolina, is that in the South?
It is in the South. Yeah.
Okay.
I think like North Carolina is interesting where it is Southern culture, but it's also like the city I grew up in is very liberal. It's
Where did you
very
grow?
artsy. It's called Winston-Salem.
Okay.
And it's like School of the Arts, North Carolina School of the Arts is there. They have this place called the Stevens Center, which is a very famous theater. They do a lot of opera. They do a lot of ballet.
And that's where you were doing opera.
No, actually, I
my
did
God.
that particular show. So it was called A Mall and the Night Visitors,
Uh-huh.
and it's a Christmas show, and that was done at this beautiful church downtown, and it was all these incredible opera singers, and I remember it was just so. That was like my first professional opportunity. I was in 6th grade, and I remember I got the role because my voice teacher at the time was like, "You have a beautiful falsetto voice, like." I want you to audition for this opera that we do. And the opera was produced by the North Carolina School of the Arts. And so I got to go. I remember going in auditioning and just being so nervous, but singing like very high. And, you know, the music from A Mall and the Night Visitors was so beautiful. But it was cool. I had like, it was an introduction into what it was like to work with professionals. Because I was the only kid in the cast. And I remember just, you know, little memories, newspaper clippings from the show. I remember, but North Carolina was a very artsy town, and there was a lot of opportunities to get better at my craft in Winston-Salem.
How long did you live there?
I lived in Winston until I moved to LA to go to USC in 2014.
I don't know why I have this like really hard time wrapping my head around that you moved here to go to USC.
I only applied to college in 2 cities. I applied to colleges in Los Angeles and New York, and my school I wanted to, this is actually, I don't think anybody in the world knows this except for like people close to me. I wanted to go to Sarah Lawrence.
Really? You wanted to go to Sarah? I have a friend that went to Sarah Lawrence.
Sarah Lawrence was my #1 school I wanted to go to. And I remember sitting down with the admissions people and saying like, I gotten in, which was really cool. Like in retrospect, I was like, oh, I got into Sarah Lawrence. That was really cool. And like, I had good grades. I loved writing. And that's why I think I got into schools like Sarah Lawrence, because I was like really good at writing, and I just loved doing stuff like that, but not so much like the math and science.
So why didn't you go though?
They wouldn't let me act and go to school.
Really? Mm-hmm. They were like, you have to just devote yourself full-time to school.
Full-time, can't take any
and
jobs.
And USC allowed you to...
USC pretended to allow me to.
Oh.
And then it got really hard, actually. So I actually left USC after my first year. I was a screenwriting major.
Actually, I remember, I think this is like around the time that I met you.
Yeah,
it was like, I think you had just left USC.
Yeah, so that must have been 2015.
Yeah, I think you had just left USC.
Yeah.
And that was part of the interesting thing of like, also I think why Roger, my dad, wanted you for Connor is I think you were at this interesting crossroads kind of in your life. Like you had just like left behind USC, so you kind of had this rebel attitude to you that Connor had. It's funny calling that a rebel attitude, but it's like you knew what you wanted and you were going after it.
I was a total rebel. I was like, I appreciate you saying that. I did know what I wanted. I went to college, and I remember having a conversation with my dad about this, and my dad knew I wasn't right for college.
Yeah.
And my dad's a doctor. My dad has an MBA. My dad, has been an ophthalmologist for over 30 years. He saved thousands of people's eyesight. Mm-hmm. But I remember, and he just looked at me and he's like, it's okay. Just go. You don't have to stay. Just go. And,
wow.
I remember like after first semester, I was like, okay, I'm done. I had enough. This is enough.
So funny.
I had my experience.
But you wanted to go to college before, and then you had the experience, and you're like, I'm kind of done?
I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to move to LA.
That's so funny, because I had like a very similar but different experience. So like my dad is a college dropout. So he did 2 years at Menlo and got like his associates. Is that what it's called when you do 2 years? And then he dropped out of USC. He dropped out of UCLA.
I didn't know that.
He dropped out of Art Center. And Art Center still has him come back to do talks and stuff every now and then. In Pasadena, yeah. Mm-hmm. He still goes and lectures there. And what he tells people is, drop out. He's like, you don't need this degree to make a movie. I'm proof of that. Take your money and go make your movie. And so he always says that to them. They keep asking him back, so they must love it. But I grew up, my mom went to USC, got a degree in accounting, helped fund my dad basically while my dad was getting Killing Zoe and when Pulp Fiction was getting off the ground, and she was working. And then as soon as he got his, like, I'm a working writer, she's like, I'm done. I'm a housewife. I'm like ready to put my feet up and like cook and clean and raise children. But I grew up like my dad was a dropout and my mom didn't use her degree, and I wanted to go into the arts. So I was like, I don't need a degree. Like, why would I need to go to college? I never wanted to do it. And actually on Unwind, when I met Kieran Shipka, she was taking the odd class at Harvard Extension. And my mom was like, you should try one. And so I tried one, and I ended up getting my degree through Harvard Extension.
Incredible.
I never imagined I was going to get a degree.
What was your degree in?
I got my degree in psychology I have 2 minors. I have a minor in history and a minor in anthropology. Wow. And I was getting my master's in religion, but I dropped it because I get crunk with God. Like, I'm not Christian, but I get like funky fresh with Jesus. Like, I love him.
Jesus is great. You read the Gospels. It's like, this dude's awesome.
It's the greatest. I just watched Journey to Bethlehem in theaters. It is like the greatest story ever told, but a musical. And I love Jesus Christ Superstar. So like,
oh my gosh, of course.
I got really crunk with it. I'm like in the theater. I'm like, praise Jesus. Like,
hands up and everything.
Hands up, everything. Like, amen. Like, let the Holy Spirit enter my soul. But no, it's like, I think I'll probably go back eventually for my master's. I'm a lifelong learner. I just love learning. So for me, it was funny though. I never wanted to go to college, and then here I am.
Was there one thing you learned while you were at Harvard Extension that stuck with you? Was there like a class you took that you think back on?
There's a few. Like, my very first class I ever took, there was a film class. It was like what was it? Scarface to Easy Rider.
Whoa.
And that was the worst experience of my life. Like, one of like the worst classes I ever took.
Why?
I've talked about this in private, and I'll just say it here right now. But we had prompts every week, and like, you watch a movie and you answer a prompt. And the movie of the week was Gone with the Wind, and the prompt was, "Is this movie racist?" And this is 2016-ish, so it's like not yet as where we are now. But I said no. I don't think Gone with the Wind is racist. Like, sure, it takes place during the Civil War, and there is the Civil War going on. But no, I don't think the movie's racist. I think the black characters are portrayed as heroes. And also, it awarded the black actress. She was the first ever black actress nominated for an Academy Award.
It's Hattie McDaniel.
Yeah.
Right?
And I was like, this is not racism. This is like opportunity and like passion and filmmaking. Oh my God, I got eaten alive in that class.
Really?
They jumped on me. They're like, you're a racist. You're a white chick. And I was like, ooh, I'm never taking a film class ever again.
Critical theory classes are brutal.
But the weird thing is, I didn't even think it was. I didn't even know what critical theory was back then. But now, I did take one other class. I said I was never going to take a film class again, and I took one. And it was Ancient Gnosticism Through Film. And I didn't know it was a film class. Like, they added the film. I know, right?
What does that mean?
So Gnosticism are like these old texts. Like, they're basically all the throwaway texts. So it's not like Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It's like Mary has her own text. Judas has a text. Every apostle has a text. And like Thomas the Twin has a text. And so they're really interesting. And so we would read them, and then the teacher assigned them to a movie. And that's where I first saw Altered States. And that, like, Ken Russell, it blew my mind. I also saw Hedwig and the Angry Inch. I saw The Fountain. We watched Pleasantville. I think that's what it's called. But yeah.
The one with Reese Witherspoon?
Yeah, the one with Reese Witherspoon. But yeah, like, that class like blew my mind, like equating religion and film together in like movies that I didn't associate it with. So I guess that's where my interest in religion comes from, is probably that class.
I think like religion is probably the most pivotal entity in the world.
Okay, so I have this theory.
What's that?
This is a theory, okay? Let's just spitball real quick.
Yeah, hit me.
I think religion and science are exactly the same thing. I think they are just a series of things that we've made up as humans to explain things that happen.
To make sense of
the world around us.
Yeah. But one is approaching it more from a layer of faith, and the other one is a little bit
It's
more
like yeah, if you read tarot, it's mundane versus esoteric. So it's like when you get knowledge given to you, you can either get mundane guidance or you can get esoteric guidance. And they're both really good, but they're different.
Both are meaningful.
Yeah.
It's like, it's you could look, okay, take it if you have to go to a doctor. You go to a doctor and they tell you something's wrong with you. And they can either say, this is how you fix it. Or they say, this is happening to you because this thing in your life is not being addressed.
And that's funny. My degree in psychology, I specialize in lifestyle medicine, which is like the psychology of health and wellness, where the doctor will look at what is actually causing your illness.
Yeah.
And help you fix it rather than just like, here's a Band-Aid, here's the medication.
This is why I love Ayurveda, right? Like Ayurveda is this 7,000 year old, practice out of India. It's like the sister science to yoga, and it approaches problems in the body with herbs, with oils, with lifestyle shifts. And I think that it's so, it doesn't, I have a hard time wrapping my head around the idea that things are random. I don't love that idea. I have a hard time with it.
Do you believe in fate?
I believe that everyone's fate is inevitable, but you have free will on how you get there. Because eventually, like, if you believe that everybody's fate is to transcend the thinking mind and the body and this identification, right, with the ego, if we believe that that's the whole purpose, that we're all supposed to be like collectively ascending on this planet, then all of our fate is the same. But how long it takes individuals to get there is up to their free will, and it's up to how much they're willing to look at themselves in the mirror, how much they're willing to like transcend and rise above their habits and these patterns that, honestly, like, one of my favorite, I mean, it's such a profound concept, like the idea that we are enacting patterns in our lives right now that our ancestors did, that were never addressed, that were never healed.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they actually have scientifically proven that the whole DNA, like your DNA has memory in it, and they've done it on Holocaust survivors and then like the descendants of Holocaust survivors, that like encoded in their DNA, they still feel the pain from the Holocaust. It's crazy to me.
That's interesting. And that clouds the way that they live their life.
Yes, because it's literally encoded in their DNA.
It's a filter. It's like you're wearing glasses all the time.
But I mean, it makes sense. Like if you think about like an animal, like over years and years and years of like stuff that happens to animals, they get instincts, and they take on traits of like, oh, migration, or like we're just animals.
And we kind of do things because it's been done before.
It's been done to us before by our ancestors, and like they learn in their DNA, like, hey, don't go over to that scary forest over there. There's like a big beast that's going to eat you. Like, how do you know that? Like when you grow up, like your fear of snakes. What? Not you in particular, but one's fear of snakes.
I have a bit of a fear of snakes.
Do you?
Yeah.
What about them?
I mean, I saw a snake the other day on a hike. And
a rattler?
No, God, no. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. Oh, I'd be so scared. No, this was a very beautiful one. I think it's called a mountain snake, king snake or something. They're gorgeous, gorgeous snakes. Freaked me out though, because I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
And then of course, you just start running. You know, you start sprinting because you're like, it's not in front of me.
It's gotta be behind me.
But I think I don't know. That isn't. So it is. So there's scientific
proof of that.
that we carry
trauma in our DNA,
in our bodies, in our minds, in our hearts. And I believe like astrology is really interesting, right?
Do you believe in it?
So, okay. It's really, we were talking earlier, you know, like about, I've always been, probably since about 5 or 6 years ago, I really started to become interested in learning more about spirituality. You know, I remember I started reading like Thich Nhat Hanh books, and I started like, you know, I would attend these like little meetings around town of just talking about spirituality. It was all very new age stuff, but around that time I started taking like Kabbalah classes. I was really curious because I'm Jewish.
I remember this.
I was raised Jewish. You know, both of my parents were Jewish. Went to Hebrew school as a kid. Was bar mitzvahed. You know, I have a brother who's in rabbinical school. So wow. Judaism is like very...
It's important to you guys.
It's important to us. For me, more so culturally. You know, I say prayers throughout the day. But it's for me, I was always more curious in an esoteric approach to Judaism. I always found it to be a little, the way it was taught in a reform setting, I always found it to be like a little dense. And I loved the idea that there was kind of a like a metaphorical approach to it, more of a figurative analysis of the Torah. And so I started going to Kabbalah classes randomly in LA. And I remember what they talked about was Kabbalistic astrology sees your traits that you're born with under specific signs as not things to lean on it like a crutch, but they see it as things to transcend.
You know what? That's kind of like Chinese zodiac. So whenever
same?
it's kind of similar. When I was in China, it was Year of the Monkey, and so anyone who is Year of the Monkey in Year of the Monkey needs to be careful, because that's like your year where like things can go wrong. You'd think like, oh, it's Year of the Monkey, it's my year. No, that's your year where like you have introspection, where like you think about yourself. That's at least how they described it to me in Beijing. So it's like when it's Year of the Pig, I'm supposed to be careful.
I think I'm Year of the Pig too.
Yeah, I think. Are you 95 or 96?
95.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're both 95.
Year of the Pig.
So yeah, we're both Year of the Pig. We're bored.
It's my year.
it's my year. You're just living in it. But no, like I 100% believe in astrology. I know it's like mumbo jumbo, like, hey, what's your star sign? Like, I'm going to judge you based on that. No, I'm not going to judge you based on that. Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
But like, I think like, for example, like this, how they do astrology in India is like super interesting.
How do they do it?
Well, I watch like a lot of these like dating shows, like 90 Day Fiance. That's like my guilty, not so guilty pleasure. But they are like really hardcore into astrology. And so even like when you get married, like they'll tell you like what day is the right day for you to get married, what hour is the right hour for you to get married. Are you two like cosmically aligned? Like what issues will these couples have like when they're with each other? And I think I want that so bad. I want someone to like find me my perfect match based on Indian astrology, because maybe I would believe it.
Do you? I mean, that is interesting in the sense of like, I love numerology. Is that what you're kind of talking about?
Well, numerology plays a part in it. I also love numerology. I'm like really into, obviously I think a lot of people are like, oh, when you see numbers like repeating themselves in your life,
Yeah.
They have meaning. But no, I totally believe in like when you're born, there's a map of the stars and no one else has that exact same map as you. It's your birth chart. So it's like Western astrology, I guess, rather than Eastern astrology. But I totally believe it. Things come true.
Years ago, I was dating this girl and we were head over heels for each other. And I remember we went on CoStar and we saw that we were not compatible, like based on our birth charts.
Really?
And we laughed about it. So we were like, what is it? No. Very quickly after that, and we put it out of our minds. It wasn't like it was playing a mind game on us. Very quickly after that, it started to unravel.
Wow.
In a very obvious way, where it's not one of those conflicts. There's conflicts in relationships where you're like, I still love this person. I want to work through this. This is a me problem. This is something I want to challenge myself. This is something I want to transcend. But there's some problems in relationships where it's like, okay, this is just a value fit.
No, I mean it's really funny when I think about it. My ex, who I love dearly, the very first day I met him, or like the first thing we did was we watched Rashomon together. The second thing I did was I read his birth chart. He is, I know, right? Laugh all you want. He is like not into astrology at all. And any of his friends that are hearing this right now will know who I'm talking about and will know, like, WTF, you read his birth chart? Okay, in his birth chart, it said that he would not get married.
Really?
And that he would not have children. Like, he would not get married. He would be a happy bachelor, like old, like maybe get married old. And when I read it, like when I first met him, I was like, okay, like this is not going to work out between us. I was so in love with him for like 4 years. And I put that out of my mind. I'm like, what does a birth chart know? Like, whatever. Well, no, it didn't work out between us. I hope it works out if he wants it to with the right person. But it's funny when you see those things and it's like, what does this know anything about it? Oh, it says this about him. Or, oh, it says this about me. That's like one thing. Like, it tells me you're going to marry a foreign man in a foreign land.
What, it said that?
Yeah, that's what it says on my birth chart. I'm going to marry either a foreign man in a foreign land or a man in a foreign land.
What do you think it is about that? Why do you think that marrying a foreign person would enrich your own journey while you're supposed to be here?
I don't know. That's the interesting thing to me, is like that's always something that's kind of stuck with me about like when I read my own birth chart. It might be partially, okay, like my star sign, I'm a Sagittarius.
Okay.
That's my sun sign.
Okay.
So Sagittariuses are very like unbridled, you can't be tamed, free, love to travel, adventurous. So maybe that's kind of what it plays into. Maybe through my adventures in life, I will meet a foreign man in a foreign land.
But you know what? Foreign man in foreign land doesn't have to be literal.
Oh, yeah, okay. How would you interpret that?
Foreign man could be a person not familiar to you.
Okay.
A personality type
you're
not familiar.
Opening up my options right now.
Well, no, I'm saying like things aren't literal, right? It's like you read a horoscope and it's just like.
But that's like what I love about horoscope. That's what I love about tarot. Because
I'm not familiar with tarot. Tell me.
So I pull tarot, and I view tarot as not like here's like set in stone like your fortune. It's like a tool for prayer. So I can pull a card and I can read my book because I have a very extensive book on it. And I can get all these things out of it. And I can say, okay, this card represents this part of my life. What do I get from it? And I can think about my situation through it. Maybe it's kind of like a friend that tells you the advice you don't want to hear or supports you when you need it. But it's really just like, what does this say and how do I interpret it? And so it's all about interpretation.
Which is really more a reflection of you than the card.
Exactly. It has nothing to do with the card. And so when people are like, oh, I don't believe in tarot. And it's like, well, do you believe in your own inner voice? Do you believe in those conversations with yourself that you have?
I think people, that's a great question. What inner voice are we talking about? Are we talking about that egoic voice, or are we talking about that little quiet whisper of sort of the intuition?
Which voices do you have in your head, Ian?
I've got all the voices. I think it's you. I think everyone has that devil on their shoulder, an angel on their shoulder. You know, I think that I think emotions can lie to you. I think emotions can also lead you in the right direction.
Oh, that's so funny because like my dad always tells me like your head will lie, but your heart will never. So I find that I lead with my heart. I don't lead with my head.
It's interesting. I love that. It's because emotions in a weird way, like maybe what we're talking about here is like the thinking mind is looking for ways to protect you. And it'll convince you, I think, and I'm super fascinated by this right now, but like the mind is conditioned to operate in a specific way. Things it rejects, interestingly enough, the word is foreign. It rejects things that are foreign because it thrives in familiarity based on upbringing, based on our past experiences in this life, ancestral trauma like we were talking about earlier. But it's like, that's a fascinating concept that sometimes what we believe is pointing us in the right direction is actually something that we need to challenge and transcend. It's like these sort of like patterns, and I'm super interested in this. And like, I think that it's almost like this is what people talk about, like the idea of doing introspection and journaling, and it's all about understanding. It's funny, my mom got me a plaque when I was a kid. It's actually the same as that one right there. And that's just the one I brought.
The Will Smith plaque.
The Will Smith quote. That was on the wall of my acting studio.
Some may be more talented, but no one will outwork me.
That was on the wall of my acting studio when I was a kid, where I started training in Winston-Salem. And we had my teacher, incredible teacher, a guy named Burgess Jenkins, had quotes all over the wall.
What a name, Burgess Jenkins.
I did my audition. Burgess coached me on my audition. That got me my first agent, a small agency in North Carolina. That was the agent that got me, the Hunger Games.
Wow. And
I remember working on my audition with Burgess in that acting studio. And Burgess would, we did auditions occasionally together. And like, the fact that he had that studio there was a blessing because I got to learn how to be an actor at a really high level in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And not just theater acting. I got to learn how to be a film actor. And it gave me a place. Like, high school was tough because I was pursuing this professional life, and I wasn't really a kid. I wasn't going to parties. I wasn't hanging out with friends.
You and I have a very, very similar circumstance because when I went into high school, my father went to jail, and it was my very first job was transcribing. Was transcribing scripts.
Was that your freshman year of high school?
That was my freshman year of high school. Yeah, when I was in 9th grade, my father was in jail, and so I homeschooled, and my very first job was transcribing scripts for him, which is where Lucky Day came from. Right. Amongst several others. But it's like I had a very interesting high school because then once he got out, I just started working with him, and then just the rest is history.
It's so special. It's so special that you two have that relationship. It's like,
I'm really lucky. I totally acknowledge that.
It's beautiful to have that multi-dimensional relationship with a parent. Is like, because when you think about it, parents are just people. They're just people.
That's a weird thing I learned when I'm getting older. It's like my dad is not invincible. I like to think he is. Like, he is my Superman. And my mom is my Wonder Woman.
I love that.
But it's like, no. And as I get older, it makes me think that, like, hopefully God blesses me with children one day. And I have children. And one day they will find out that I am just a human. I am just a woman.
But I don't know if it's, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if that's like, I wasn't saying it as a way of like reducing the essentially, oh, they're just a person. It's almost like, no, they're just a person. Like, we're here to help them as much as they're here to help us.
You think so?
I 100% think so. Like,
I guess I think a person learns a lot through being a parent about themselves and the world.
yeah, you hear the phrase that people say, like, change is everything, like that you're changed after you have a kid or something. But okay, so here's a fun little thing. I'm super proud of my mom right now. My mom is this incredibly intelligent, incredibly wonderful person. She raised me and my 3 older siblings. She ran the house. Like, she was really the CEO of our family. And like,
As moms are.
As moms are. And she just, I used to say that my mom, well, I still say it, but like, my mom's best skill was getting shit done. She got shit done, and I feel like, and she always had this desire to do something else after we had grown up, right? After I'd left, to go to USC, she was always searching for this thing. And recently, with all of the work that I've been doing in the marketing firm, and understanding sort of just how to communicate messages and how to sort of like execute a campaign, how to start projects, how to create, how to produce. My mom wanted to create this writing group. She wanted to teach, and she has all these certifications. My mom is like highly accomplished in these like coaching programs and like all these things. And she's so, she's so smart. She was a high school English teacher before my oldest brother was born. And she wanted to do this writing group, and I could help her I could complement her skill set. She could teach the class, but she didn't know how to create the assets needed to promote.
And you were able to.
And I was able to essentially help her with the marketing of this. And I was able to help her with that. And I think it's like my mom, get a little emotional here. My mom gave me every opportunity to be successful. She wasn't a stage mom, but I remember I told, it's funny, people assume because I was a child actor that my mom was domineering. I went to my mom. I said, I need to take ballet class.
Wow.
And I went to my mom and
she supported you.
And she was like, okay. And I was like, Mom, I need an agent. And I was like, Mom, I need to go to theater camp. All I said to my mom was, after I did my first play in 5th grade, I said, Mom, I want to do more of that. And she's like, let me figure out where you can do more of that.
She got it done. She found me in an incredible theater camp,
changed my life. I went to a theater camp. I had because of the head of the camp thought I was, pretty good, I guess. And, set me up a meeting with a famous Broadway agent in New York. That agent essentially told me I wasn't good enough yet. I was 11. She's like, you're not good enough. You need to go take acting class, dance class, voice lessons. And she said, call me in 2 years. Let me know how you're doing. I called her in 2 years. She never picked up. By the end of the 2 years, I was really good. And I was able to get an agent in North Carolina. I started auditioning. I got the Hunger Games. After that, I think I did Teen Wolf. I did all these like projects. And then, as I got older, I started to grow into bigger roles and like more mature parts. And I think it's like, I look back what my mom did for me, and my mom just created opportunities for me.
I think we're both really, really lucky with that. Like, my parents have always supported me. Like, my dad, like, literally is my champion. And my mom, which a lot of people, because I don't post my mom on social media because my mom is very private, but like, my mom is my best friend, my cheerleader. She is the person like behind the scenes. Like, when I am breaking down and I need someone to build me back up, it's my mom. And I don't know if like parents get enough recognition in this day and age of like all the stuff that they do for us.
You mean parents in general?
I think parents in general.
They do not. It's like, there's something really, it's not something to take for granted. A lot of people in this world don't have that story to tell where their parents support them. Mm-hmm. And I think it's, it's anyway, to circle it back. That's why when my mom asked me for help, I was like, of course I'll post for you on social media. Of course I'll help you create flyers and stuff. Of course I'll create an email account for you and, brainstorm if you ever need to discuss things. It was like, because it's like, I can help you with the things that you need to do in the same way that you helped me with the things that I needed to do. Like, and I think it's been really special. I've really actually, sometimes it's annoying when I just want to like talk to my mom and she wants to talk business, like I've had a hard day and she's like, what's the next post, Ian?
She's on that grind.
But you know what? My mom is like, I think that it's, people are placed in our lives, and I'm not just talking about my mom, but like, I think I do think like, we can finish this thought.
You can finish it, Ian.
But like, I think that people are placed in your life for a reason. And a lot of the times it's not even the reason has nothing to do with you. And sometimes that's the painful part, is you might meet somebody and the whole purpose might have been to teach them something about themselves. And it might be painful for you and it might be painful for them, but it kind of gets you closer to that ultimate fate that we were talking about, which is like, realizing that a lot of this is just total nonsense, and it's like the way the mind works and the way the society operates. It's like a lot of it is just kind of nonsense. And I think that's sort of the interesting thing about the world we're living in today is I think people are just a little more aware of how silly a lot of this stuff is.
Well, the thing is that everyone should just laugh. Life's a play.
It's also, it's like, I'm not like a huge believer in like, what is it called? What is that? What do you call that? A simulation. I'm not a huge believer in that. I think it's a little too futuristic for me. It's a little too scientific for me. But I do think that there's a game element to life, because if you can change your thoughts, you can change your life. And so it's like, if you can wake up in the day and think this is going to be a great day and there's nothing I can't do, that's probably going to be your reality. And so I think that way it's a game. So my whole point is like, people are put in our lives and we're put in other people's lives. And I think that the whole point is to kind of get everyone closer to, their purpose, their, whatever it is. And sometimes, we look back, right? Like, we couldn't have predicted the way our lives would unravel over the last 3 years. Not unravel in a bad way, but just kind of more like, present themselves. And it's kind of like, sometimes I'm sitting at my desk, or I'm on a walk, or I'm in some, new part of LA meeting some new person in this different industry I never thought I'd, interact with a person in. And I'm just like, wow.
Here I am.
Like, life is insane.
And that's all the time that we have for today. But Ian, is there any final thought that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh, I never said it earlier. I said about the plaque that my mom gave me. It was I forget who said it. I don't want to get it wrong. It's either Socrates or Sophocles. And the quote is, "Know thyself. It will be the greatest gift you give to yourself."
Well, I guess it's a good thought to leave everyone with. Thank you, Ian, for coming on to the show. If you'd like to keep up with Ian, you can check out his Instagram at IanMichaelNelson95. And you can also check out his podcast, What Is Your Meaning, available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Gala Avery, and this has been The Gala Show. The Gala Show is brought to you by Avery.com. This episode was executive produced by Roger Avery and produced by Gala Avery. Music composed by Andy Milburn. As always, I'm your host, Gala Avery. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved. Despite me sharing the same last name with this charity, I don't have any affiliation with it, besides the fact that the issue is very near and dear to my heart. Did you know that in the United States, 2.7 million children currently have a parent in prison, and it's estimated that 10 million children have experienced parental incarceration at some point in their lives? I was one of these kids, and as an adult, I am really grateful to be able to give back to Project Avery. Their mission is to build leadership from within by supporting community through programs such as mentoring and outdoor education, and also to remove the stigma surrounding having a parent that's incarcerated. You don't have to feel alone. If you know a kid who could use these resources or would like to donate money or time to the charity, please go to Project Avery, that's AVARY.org, to check out what this amazing charity is all about. Again, that's projectavery.org. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.